Hi, I'm here with the Lambrusco that I started about a week and a half ago, and I've been carefully monitoring the specific gravity of it because this is a wine that I want to have sweet. So I took a sample today and it is right at 1.1, right at 1.012. So I want to stop it. It tastes really great. It's nice and sweet, and that's where I want it. So I want it to stop, and so today I'm going to take it out of the pail and I'm going to transfer it into the carboy, and then I'm going to add some metabisulfite and some sorbate to it. And my hope is that the yeast will stop working in it and that it will be at a 1.008, which leaves a nice residual sweetness for this type of wine. So I'm going to transfer this and then I'll be back. Alright, I've transferred the Lambrusco into the carboy. Normally I tell people to put their wine all the way up to the neck so that there's very little space in between the stopper. But I'm only going to have this in here for about a month, and I actually need a little bit of space to put in my metabisulfate and sorbate, which I'm going to do right now. So the sorbate is supposed to be a half a teaspoon per gallon, and the metabisulfate is a quarter teaspoon for a whole 6 gallons. So I put in 3 teaspoons of sorbate and a quarter teaspoon of metabisulfate and just mixed it in about a quarter cup of water. Pour that in there. You can see it's starting to foam. That's also why I wanted that headspace in there, because it's probably going to foam up into the neck, and I'm hoping that it doesn't go up out of the neck. I'm going to let that go a little bit. That's the yeast being killed off. They are not happy right now. But it's going to make me happy when I have a nice sweet wine. And then I'm going to get that in there and I'm going to stir it up real good. I am not going to degas right now. I'm going to degas this and clarify it in, like I said, about 3 weeks to a month. I'm going to transfer this into a pail and then back into a smaller carboy for aging. So for right now, I'm just going to stir it up, get everything mixed up. Probably doing a little bit of degassing along with this. You can see all the bubbles coming up to the surface. I also want to note and show you how much sediment I left in the bottom of this pail. I didn't want to suck up all of the wine because I wanted to make sure that I left all of the yeast in the bottom, because I do not want this to ferment down much more. So I really left a lot of sediment, a little bit of wine in the bottom, just because the more yeast I soak up, the greater the chances are that it's going to continue fermenting down to a dry wine. So I'm just going to give it a few more stirs. And then of course when it's all done, I'm just going to pop on my airlock and my stopper and let it sit. You can see it's starting to foam up. Keep going. And I'm going to keep stirring this until the foam kind of dissipates and it's not so crazy. Alright, so I probably have about another 4 minutes of stirring. I'll see you in a month, hopefully with a nice sweet Lambrusco. Well, there's no need to let this go to waste. Oh, it's so good. It's really good. It's so good. Alright, I better stop. Oh, it's so good. It's been 3 days since I added sorbate and sulfite to stop this Lambrusco from further fermenting the sugar out. I want this to be a sweet wine, and so I added the sorbate and metabisulfite when the hydrometer was at 1.012. I've been monitoring it very carefully to ensure that fermentation slows down and preferably stops. So right now it's at a 1.010 and it still has quite a bit of bubbles and there's a ton of sediment on the bottom. So to make sure that it stops and stays sweet, I'm going to transfer it off the sediment and I'm going to add 1 more quarter teaspoon of potassium metabisulfate to it. And that should kill the yeast and make sure that I have a nice sweet Lambrusco. I've transferred the wine over, and as you can see, I've left a good amount of sediment behind. I also have some space in here, which I'm not going to worry about because this is only going to be in the carboy for about another month, and it's not going to be enough time for it to cause any off flavors or discoloration. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add another quarter teaspoon of metabisulfate to it to ensure that the yeast is killed off, and that will also help preserve the color and the flavor of it for the month that it sits in here as well. So I'm just going to add that in, and if you've been following along, that is a total of a half a teaspoon that I have put in this wine since starting it. I've added the quarter teaspoon. I'm just going to give it a stir and then stick the stopper on. After this, I'm now going to watch it carefully again, ensure that fermentation has stopped, and let it sit for about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to go to degassing and clarifying. It's been 4 days since I transferred my sweet Lambrusco off the sediment and added a quarter teaspoon of potassium metabisulfate to further prevent any fermentation. I've been monitoring it carefully and checking the specific gravity to ensure fermentation has stopped. The specific gravity is still at 1.010, which tells me I've successfully stopped fermentation. You can see that it has a good amount of sediment at the bottom again, which means that it's starting to clear quite nicely. I'm now going to transfer it off the sediment and into a pail to degass it and add a fining agent to further clear it up and prepare for bottling in about 2 weeks. Degassing wine is really a simple process. All it involves is stirring your wine to get rid of the carbon dioxide that's in it. You can either use a stir paddle or a drill mounted device, which will get the job done much faster. The more important piece of knowledge to understand is how do you know when your wine is finished degassing? There's 2 ways to tell. You can take a sip, try it, and if it tastes fizzy on your tongue, it needs a little bit more degassing, like this one does. The other way to tell is to take a test tube, put your hand over the top, give it a really good shake, and listen to it pop. This needs a lot more degassing. So I'm going to take my drill mounted device and give it a good whip. But first I'm going to sanitize. With a drill mounted device, it's going to take me about 4 minutes to get this done. If I was using a manual labor and a stir paddle, I'd need to stir it for about 15 minutes. I want to also note that you should go back and forth and not go all in one direction. The object of the game is to get the CO2 out of your wine, not draw oxygen back into your wine like a whirlpool. That's all for now. I've degassed the Lambrusco and transferred it back into another carboy. The very final step is I just need to add my fining agent. Today I'm going to use a sparkaloid fining agent, which is, I need to use 1 tablespoon of it and mix it in boiling water for 5 minutes. There are other fining agents out there that you can use, such as Dual Fine or Super Clear or Isinglass. They're made up of keto salt or chitosan, But I had the sparkleoid on hand, so that's what I'm going to use today. So the very last step is I just need to dump it in, give it a quick stir, and then I'm going to let this sit for 2 weeks and bottle it. Grab my paddle, spray off the sanitizer, of course. Quick stir. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a nice, clear, pink Lambrusco. I cannot wait. In the meantime, I'm going to finish off this testing sample. Cheers. Oh, it's so good. It's been a week since I added the sparkleoid to my Lambrusco. I pulled a sample out today and it's nice and clear and tastes really good. So I'm very excited because I'm going to bottle it today. And all I have to do in order to bottle it is there's some sediment on the bottom, so I'm going to transfer it into another container, either a cardboard or a pail, and transfer it off the sediment and then bottle from there so I don't get any sediment in my bottles. And that's it. I'm all done with my sweet wine Lambrusco, and I'm super excited to share it with my friends and family, and I hope you have just as much success following along with these videos. Cheers!